Put another 5-star recruit on the list. Oregon Ducks big visit weekend is here. This is the first one of the summer. We got Justin Hopkins from Scoop Duck. So Tyler Atkinson, the latest addition. He was at Clemson last weekend. He's got a couple more lined up. And Oregon's managed to just kind of hang around this recruitment. How big is it for them to get him on campus this weekend?
Yeah, hang around is the right word there. Oregon has gotten him on campus several times, surprisingly, but they've done a really good job just kind of laying in the weeds and kind of working behind, closed doors a little bit there, which is tough to do with a guy like Tyler Atkinson because he's just a really good football player. But, I know those in Eugene really view him as an elite linebacker, like, a game-changing defensive guy. And I'm sure Clemson, Georgia, and the others view him in the same light as well. So no secret there. If you're Oregon, you got to get him on campus, and you got to hope, if you're Dan Lanning and Marshall Malco and the guys, you got to hope the flight goes smoothly to and from, because Oregon is the only school west of Texas on his list. So when I see those lists and I see, if I see a couple schools, I feel a little better about it. When I see Oregon as the only one, it gives me a little bit of pause for those 5 stars from the Southeast. But you know what? Oregon's going to get him on campus. They'll make their play, and we know anything's possible in today's NIL world.
Yeah, so now moving down the list of 5 stars on campus, we come across DB Brandon Arrington, and I believe he was on campus for the spring game, and he had said that was one of the best spring games he went to, felt like Oregon was maybe his leader, but as we know with Brandon Arrington, wherever he goes, it always comes out feeling like he's the leader. You've had Alabama, A&M, even USC up in the mix. So Brandon Arrington on campus this weekend. Like, where do you see his recruitment right now with Oregon? Do they have ground to make up? Are they the team to beat? Where is it at?
Yeah, this one's really interesting. And the reason that I say that this one's interesting is because he was originally scheduled to visit Oregon June 20th. You were going to get the last trip. And, just from talking to sources and people around the industry, I believe the two sides, and Oregon was a big part of this, moved this trip up. So that tells you that, not necessarily panic, but there's obviously a reason for Oregon to want to move this trip up and give up that, coveted last spot because, recruiting's kind of changed now. You always want to be the last visit. And now, I'm not so sure that that's the case anymore. So that's the interesting part of this. And I agree with you. He recently visited Washington. All of a sudden, Washington's in the mix. At one point, you think it's USC, you think it's A&M. He's just kind of been a very impressionable young man, which I don't have a problem with. But I think Oregon has seen that too and decided their play is to get him on campus sooner than later, maybe make the big push and see if they can get this thing locked up. I think that's kind of what we're looking for with this one.
All right, 5-star edge Richard Wesley. Yes, that Richard Wesley is back on campus. He's uncommitted. If you remember, he was committed to the Ducks for 17 days. They were glorious 17 days. But he's back on campus for an official visit. If he asked Dan Lanning to do a cannonball, do you think Lanning does it this go-around?
I was thinking of that myself, like, all right, are they going to go by the pool and hang out? Is Dan jumping in with them? And I'm sure, Oregon's leaned pretty heavily into that and, taking it on the chin and done pretty well with it. I think he makes the cannonball, and I'm sure he's hoping to do the cannonball if it comes to that. But, yeah, Richard Wesley.
Yeah, what's going on here? Because you and I come from a different era before NIL where if a recruit did this 10, 12, 13, 15, 20 years ago, they probably wouldn't be invited back. The stat, they just wouldn't, they would break apart. They wouldn't consider each other anymore, but this is a whole new world. So is Richard Wesley in Oregon like really a thing again?
Yeah, it never stopped being a thing. And that's, I think obviously there was a lot. He made his decision, went home, talked about it with his family, primarily his dad, it sounds like. And, they just kind of decided to ease off things a little bit. Oregon understood, and I know that the relationship stayed intact there. Oftentimes, as you and I both know, back in the day, if there was a decommitment, they were going somewhere else, right? And it's not so much the case anymore. Jared Curtis ends up back at Georgia. Richard Wesley.
You see it all the time now.
Yeah, much more frequent now. So, yeah, could totally get him back. Oregon, basically is like his first visit here coming through. And again, you kind of wonder if that's by design. Would they rather have had that last spot? Is this hey, let's get you and your family up here. Maybe we can get this thing ironed out. That's what I think Oregon's hoping for. So if we see Dan Lanning jumping in a pool again this weekend, I guess we'll know what happened.
All right, there it is. All right, okay, so those are the 5 stars. There's a bunch more visitors coming in. You guys go to scoopduck.com for more. But Justin, Who else do you think Duck fans should be aware of this weekend that's going to be on campus?
Yeah, we know 4-star defensive back / athlete Joey O'Brien will be on campus. And, that one has really felt like Oregon and Penn State are battling hard there. And he's already taken his Penn State official visit. So you just kind of look at that one a little bit. He's a very unique, very dynamic, rangy safety back there that I think Oregon really likes. The other one that I'm not sure visits this weekend, but should visit here possibly midweek, is 4-star wide receiver Messiah Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
It's a guy that Ross Douglas, who took over for Junior Adams at the wide receiver coaching position for Oregon, that was his first offer. And Hampton was barely a 4-star at the time outside the 300. He skyrocketed up the rankings. So he's set to make his college decision in about a week and a half from now. So you kind of wonder if Oregon's going to be able to get him back on campus and maybe get that thing locked up. I know Miami, Syracuse, and others have made a lot of push there, but that's one I'm kind of keeping my eye on and thinking Oregon's looking to make a big move with.
Yeah, and just as a note, Messiah Hampton is going to make his decision. I was texting with him last night right here on the On3 Recruit channel, so make sure you guys are subscribed if you are not yet. All right, Justin, well, it's going to be a big weekend. You guys go to scoopduck.com for all the action. Appreciate you.